Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Keep Moving Forward podcast. Join us every week as we dive into the stories of remarkable current and former athletes that have transitioned into the real world. Now here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the 245th episode of the Keep Moving Forward podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. In the KMF Collective Studio with me today, I have founder of TQN Training, Mitch Darnton. How are you doing, Mitch?
Good, Katie. How you doing?
I am doing awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your story with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So, Mitch, to get to know your background a little bit, can you share with us where you grew up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I'm actually from a super small town in northern Michigan, Harbor Springs. So like my high school had 300 kids in it, so I knew everybody. But sports were like life. Mm-hmm. I would say elementary school, like I played everything: football, soccer, basketball, baseball. We also had we were lucky enough in Michigan, it gets cold 8 months out of the year, to have two small little ski hills near us. So also in the winter, like we were skiing. Both my parents taught skiing, so I grew up skiing, on a pair of skis since I could walk, basically. But elementary school, and those days you maybe have like one game on the weekends, no matter what sport you're playing. But so like after school, we go to a friend's house, like 3-on-3 basketball, or 2-on-1, or 21, or playing football in the backyard, or wiffle ball home run derby. Like everything just seemed to turn into a competition from a young age. So like I've been playing sports since, it's probably my oldest memory, honestly.
Yeah. I love that. And then, too, being exposed to skiing and all manner of sports at such a young age. And, yeah, if you grow up around it, you get to grow up with kids doing the same thing. Then you have those built-in teammates, that built-in camaraderie and competitiveness that comes out in just any sport that you get to play.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I love the competitive aspect, but also the team aspect of, like, all that stuff. And then, honestly, it was just fun. I had a brother growing up as well, and I was, like, after school, we were always playing something. Mom or dad was taking us to a practice, or we were going to a friend's house to play something. So sports were life as a kid.
Yep, sports are life. I love it. So, Mitch, playing with your brother and all those neighborhood kids, was there a specific sport that maybe you really started to take to, or really kind of took your heart, or was it just all manner of sports, just through middle school and high school?
Yeah, for sure I played everything. So through middle school and high school, I was always three-sport athlete, but for sure football took my heart. Like that was my favorite sport by far. I remember like we didn't have flag football growing up, and I think it was either fourth or fifth grade for me where our little town first got Pop Warner football. Like a bunch of other kids, in other schools in Michigan had been playing, but we finally got it when I was in fourth or fifth grade, and that was like everything to me. That was awesome. So football for sure was my number one love, but I played basketball, soccer, baseball in middle school, and then I actually got hit in the head a couple times playing baseball with pitches. So when I got to high school, I figured I was done with that. So I actually played tennis in the spring in high school. So I played football in the fall, basketball during the winter, and then tennis in the spring in high school.
Wow. That is cool, though, that you were able to make that shift, realizing, okay, maybe I don't want to continue to, sustain those head injuries. So making that shift to a totally new sport. Had you played tennis before, other than maybe when you were really little, kind of hanging out?
No, honestly, I had never really, just like playing, like, my grandparents lived at a country club or whatever. So like every once in a while you go to like a tennis camp or something in the summer, but really never really played or got into it. And honestly, like getting into it in high school, it was awesome. I played doubles, but absolutely love it. Like still play a little bit to this day. It's just something super fun you can stick with.
Yeah, it is. I've heard that about tennis. It's one of those sports that you can just continue to play no matter what phase of life you are at, no matter what age you are. It's just you can keep playing it and modifying the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Mitch, from there, you said football really took your heart, starting to take your hand at tennis, and then basketball too. Did you have aspirations to try and continue on at the collegiate level or that next level with sport, or did you kind of know that it might come to an end after high school?
Definitely as a kid, like that's your dream to like, I'm going to go play college football or college sport and be in the NFL and all that stuff. But being like, as a freshman in high school, I think I was 5'1", 140 pounds, like soaking wet, and not the best athlete. So, I mean, there was at some point where I knew that most likely wasn't in the cards for me. I mean, I probably could have gone to, like a small Division III school and been able to walk onto the team and all that. But growing up in such a small town and being part of, just such a small group my entire life, I really wanted to just move on to like the bigger college scene. My brother actually played basketball at Michigan State.
Wow.
So I was like, if there's like, if I end up trying to walk onto the Michigan State football team or basketball team or whatnot and make it, that's great. But I'm happy being done with like the small town, small school scene. And if I don't really play college sports after that, it's not a huge deal to me.
Yeah, it makes sense being ready for that next phase, whatever it was going to look like, even if that meant maybe hanging up, playing sports for a little while.
Right.
So Mitch, then with having that desire to go to college and have that next big experience, how did you decide where you wanted to go? Was it purely dictated by, what you wanted to major in, or how did you navigate making those next steps?
I definitely knew that I wanted to go to a bigger school, and I was going to stay in state in Michigan no matter what, just so I could be kind of close to home.
Yeah.
But also grew up a diehard Spartan fan my entire life. So both my parents went to Michigan State, their parents went to Michigan State. So like our family, grew up a Spartan, and the fact that my brother was on the basketball team there, I was like, this is a no brainer. Like, love green and white. So
Yep.
I visited a few other schools, but like I knew, like probably my sophomore year of high school, that if I got into Michigan State, I was going there.
Mm-hmm. So then you ended up going to Michigan State.
Yeah, I went to Michigan State, studied marketing.
Okay.
Business marketing was what I got my degree in. But after leaving high school and not being able to play sports, obviously had to find something that could keep me going. So I played intramurals and all that stuff and had fun with it and loved it. But yeah.
Yeah. So what made you decide that you wanted to pursue business marketing?
Honestly, my two choices were I was either going to get a business degree, mainly because I knew that with a business degree, I could, possibly apply for a lot of different jobs out of college, because I didn't necessarily know exactly what I wanted to do. It was either that or studying exercise science was my other option. And with my brother being on the basketball team, I actually did a lot of workouts with the basketball team and the head basketball strength coach, and learned a lot of stuff from those guys. And eventually was, kind of in that place of, do I go business or do I go exercise science? And from talking to them in terms of, I wanted their job to be, a collegiate strength coach. And from then it kind of seemed like the route that you might take, that most guys take, is, you're a grad assistant for 3 years, then you're another assistant for 3 years at another D3 school down the road, and then you move to another state. And it's like, after 10 years, you might get the job you were looking for, and it's a lot of grind on yourself, and if you have a family and whatnot. So,
yeah.
And they were also like, most likely if you get an exercise science degree, 90% chance you're working at a 24-hour fitness training, older clients. So right then and there, I was like, I can get my certification if I want to later on, but I'm going to go with a business degree now just to set myself up.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, I've heard that, just the rigor of, if you want to become a college coach in any capacity, just the challenges of, you pretty much have to be, I guess, at the mercy of wherever there's an opening, and then you have to be willing to just grind. And that's not, of course, it's not an issue to grind and put in the work, but it's just, is that really the path that you want to take? And so having that realization at such a young age in college is kind of poignant, because you know that you can still do that at some point in your life, but kind of relying then on saying, okay, I'm going to get a marketing degree first, and then I can go back and get the certifications that I might want later.
Right, exactly. So that was my goal: get the marketing degree and then figure out, what it is that I want to do. And if that's really my passion, I can always go back, because I minored in kinesiology anyway. So I could have gone back and, got some credits and then did my master's and so on and so forth, and kind of look into that path. So I at least left that open to see if that was, an option that I wanted to take later on.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. And so Mitch, from there, I mean, working with the basketball team and really kind of taking this liking to coaching and working with these athletes. So was there ever a time that you really struggled with it in the sense that you were no longer that, in that organized athletic realm? You're of course playing intramurals, but, navigating that transition from high school into college and then starting to work with these athletes. Was it ever challenging for you to kind of distance yourself and say, okay, I'm working with the athletes, I'm more of a coach versus being, the one playing?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. That was tough, obviously, but I grew to, like, as a kid in high school and middle school. I wasn't the best athlete by any means. I started on the football and basketball team, but we weren't great. And I almost learned to, and like especially in college too, that because I didn't have that opportunity to play on those teams, I almost learned to love the work more than like actually playing the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like I loved practicing, I loved lifting, I loved the actual workouts with the team, as opposed to almost playing the game for the most part. So like getting into coaching was awesome, honestly. Like I love coaching. I love, like, even to this day, like I'll still work out with some of my classes and some of my athletes that I'm coaching just because I love it so much.
I love that. And I mean, having that mental shift of knowing, of course, you loved playing the sport, but really that recognition of learning to love the work that you put into play and then being able to relay that to then athletes coming up and be able to be on the flip side of that coin.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, especially as a lot of kids growing up, some kids that are great athletes don't really necessarily understand the need for the training that they're putting in or different things like that, because like they're so God gifted already that they probably don't need to be doing a ton of that stuff.
Yeah. But
teaching them the buy-in process and understanding where it's going to get them down the road in sports and in life is going to make, a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Right. You're so right. I mean, playing sports at whatever level applies to so many different areas of your life. And it's hard to realize that when you're in it, of course. And even years after, you have to you get to piece it all together and reflect back. But then you encounter things in your life and you realize, oh, wow, I came up against this kind of same circumstance when I played sports when I was 10, or that one time I played that soccer game. And it's really cool how sports really just kind of lay that groundwork for you.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it teaches you humility. It teaches you how to lose. It teaches you how to overcome when you mess up and screw up. I mean, we all made bad decisions and bad plays playing sports growing up. And it's like, you got to deal with it. And your coach got on you and, you knew he was right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you kind of take it and I don't know, I feel like sports and working out can just teach us so much about so many other facets of life.
Oh, yeah. I could not agree more. And so, Mitch, then coming up on graduation and deciding to go in with your business marketing and looking to the future, what did you have in mind as far as a career path, or was it really just kind of graduating and seeing what you could get?
Yeah, honestly, funny enough, I literally 3 days after I graduated college, so I graduated in December of 2010 from Michigan State. 3 days after I graduated from college, I was on a plane to Aspen, Colorado to teach skiing for 3 years.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I didn't think I was like, ready to dive in right away to that real job life. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, still wanted to live a little bit. It was ready to be done with college. Had gone out to Colorado a few times for spring break. And just those few times kind of fell in love with skiing again, like I had growing up, but really hadn't done a whole lot of skiing since high school, just because basketball was in the winter for us and kind of took over our lives. So I was like, I want to, I'm going to kind of put the business degree on the back burner after I graduated. Like I have it, I can always use it. So like I'm going to Colorado and I'm going to teach skiing. I'm going to work at a hotel. And I did that for 3 years and absolutely loved it. It was like 3 of the best years of my life for sure.
That sounds amazing. So was it like a program that you were a part of, or was it just you kind of up and packed and said, all right, I'm going to Colorado. I'm going to figure it out when I get there?
Yeah, it was that. I was literally I'm packing my stuff up. Like, I know friends of a friend who's in there, and I'm going to stay at his house for a couple weeks until I can lock down a job and lock down a place to live. Good thing about Aspen is it's a very touristy town and so on and so forth. And during the ski season, there's so many places that need to hire extra help for the season. So I was actually coming in like or early December at a perfect time. So many places were hiring. If I had come at a different time, it might have been a lot harder, but I basically, like, in 2 days, I had a job teaching skiing and a job at a hotel. So
Dang. And so then after that 3-year period of, I mean, you said you loved it so much. What eventually brought you back? Did you end up coming back to Michigan, or I mean, what happened next?
So after that, I kind of had just like wanted a little bit of a change of scenery.
Yeah.
So I'd been in the mountains for a while, and just growing up in Michigan where it's basically gray and cold for 8 months out of the year, I was missing the water and the sun. So I actually moved to Charleston, South Carolina.
Wow.
Which is where I currently live. So I moved here 8 years ago, currently live here in Charleston, South Carolina. Had also, like, in Aspen, still stuck with some training, had worked with the football team a little bit there, had worked with the ski team as well there, and also just like keeping myself in good health and fitness and doing a lot of that. So when I first came here to Charleston, I was like, I need a place to work out. I don't have a certification right now, but I'm going to apply to work at some gyms in the area just to, like, get a job under my feet and get started.
And so then, was it just because you loved, I mean, I guess reflecting back on when you were in college, working with those athletes, so wanting to start that training, or was it kind of derived from, because I would imagine, I guess, working with skiers would be a different, not necessarily, I mean, it's still fitness, but working in a different capacity, going from being outdoors to then being inside the confines of a gym. So how did you navigate that?
Right, for sure. And that was tough. And, skiers, everyone obviously needs to be stronger and faster to an extent, but
Right.
skiers deal with a ton of force production and force absorption in terms of, like, going around those turns and, like, holding that. So it was just very cool to learn different dynamics of, like, these are how, I trained with the basketball guys. These are how the football guys trained. What do skiers do different? And I just kind of fell in love with almost self-learning, like reading articles online and stuff like that, and trying new things with myself and other athletes. So when I came to Charleston, I obviously wanted a place to work out first and foremost for myself, but I was like, if I could train athletes, that would be my goal of all sorts,
Yeah. Yeah. So you wanted to work with not just skiers, but people from all walks of life, helping them in just all different capacities with whatever their goals were.
Exactly.
So did you decide on a certain gym that you wanted to coach at? Did you decide you at that time wanted to break off and start doing personal training? What was that next step?
Yeah, so that next step is I was kind of looking for anything at first. I just moved to Charleston, so I was looking for anything right away just to get in the door somewhere so I could get a job and start making some money. And so I just literally went on Google, looked up basically every single gym in the area, and then started driving around, literally passing out resumes. And I think it was honestly the last gym I went to that day. I think I'd been to like 15 or 16 gyms that day. Last gym I went to, and it was honestly probably my first choice if I had a choice. It was a Velocity Sports Performance. So I don't know if you know of the chain Velocity Sports Performance. It's kind of like a D1 Athletics or whatnot. So it's a huge weight room facility. They had like 40 yards of turf inside, a basketball court in the back, a whole full weight room. And I was like, man, this would be sick. Like, if I could get a job here.
Yeah.
So I go in, I handed my resume, and I'm talking to the guy who's the director of performance there. And we're talking a little bit, and he looks at my resume and he's like, Harbor Springs, Michigan. Like, do you know so-and-so? And it was a kid that I actually went to high school with. And he's like, that kid's my best friend. And I'm like,
wow.
And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So he was also, the performance director was also from Michigan. So, like, we just kind of had a connection right away. And the fact that we were good friends with another personal friend that we had no idea. I basically got hired on the spot. So again, kind of got super lucky with that. Didn't have a certification yet, but he's like, look, you're going to learn a lot of stuff under us. You're going to coach, you're going to shadow some classes as well while you're working to get your certification.
That's such a small world, but I guess everybody at some point, if you lived, not everybody, but I would think if you lived in the cold, you would want to find warmth at some point. So,
yeah, 100%. I think I meet more people in the Charleston area that are from like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan than I do people that are actually from here.
Oh yeah, they're all transplants. Everybody comes down south.
Yeah.
I get it. And so, Mitch, when you then walked through the doors of Velocity and really got your foot in the door and started working there, started shadowing, what was that first certification that you were going after? Was there multiple that you were trying to get at the same time?
Yeah. So the first certification I was after was just in order to like be able to teach classes and stuff like that. I just needed a certified personal trainer certification. So I got that through ACSM, American College of Sports Medicine. And that's actually still currently the only certification that I've had.
Wow.
Pretty much everything else that I've done is like self-taught. You know, I love self-learning. I go to seminars. I feel like I can learn so much more by being in contact with people, or honestly, like being on a podcast like this with yourself, like so much more with being in person and listening to those guys talk, as opposed to, you know, reading a book and taking a test. Cause I feel like you can only take so much from that, but it doesn't really have any like implementation or, you know, how to relate to clients and things like that.
You're right. I mean, having that in-person experience, experiential learning, and then too, learning from people in person, it's hard to replicate that or replace that with, of course, there's great books and,
Right.
and, you know, things out there, but you're right. It's very hard to replace that experiential learning.
Right. Yeah.
So Mitch, from there, I mean, starting at Velocity and then, you know, fast forwarding through 8 years of training, personal training and coaching, how did TQN training come into the mix? What is that and how was it born?
Yeah. So TQN actually stands for thick, quick, nasty.
Yeah.
And I don't know. So kind of just my training style in terms of I love a lot of different things. So obviously as a dude, like when you're in high school and college, it's like your goal is just to get as jacked as possible, like straight bodybuilding workouts, but also loved athletic performance at the same time. So I kind of love and had dabbled in CrossFit a little bit. So I think I was like posting some videos of like certain workouts that I was doing, and it was like a combo of these athletic training moves and some CrossFit and some stuff like that. And my brother just commented on it one day as like thick, quick, nasty. and he was like, dude, you have to start something with that. And so like that's kind of how TQN training started. And that was like literally 7 or 8 years ago. But I've definitely evolved in terms of how I train myself, how I train athletes, and it all kind of started too changing up the way I train and exploring different things in terms of, I read a lot of Eric Cressy's stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with him. So he has a place in Boston. He has a place in Florida. He trains tons of professional baseball players. Awesome dude. The guy's a genius. And one time saw a quote from him that was like, if you don't look back a year ago on your training and think that you're an idiot, like you're not growing, you're not getting better. And like, not necessarily to an extent that I was an idiot, but you look back and you always see different ways that like you could have done such and such better. You could have done this better, or like change this up a little bit. So I think like my training style has always kind of evolved.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've tried so many types of training on myself, as well as put athletes and bodybuilders and CrossFit athletes and powerlifters, and through so many types of programming, like I've kind of experienced it all.
I really like that quote because it's true. I mean, you have to continually grow and, push yourself out of your comfort zone. It reminded me of a quote. I don't know who says it, but it was about entrepreneurship. And it's, if you love or even like your first product, you launch too late. Or if it's like, if you don't hate your first product, then you launch too late. So it's just, you got to put something out there.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So Mitch, then with TQN training, starting with your brother commenting and like that was it. It kind of lit that fire. Did you know you wanted to branch off and start your own brand of training, or did it just kind of evolve over time into what it is today?
It definitely kind of evolved over time. Like right away, I didn't really have, what's my end goal. Like there were years where I was like, man, I might want to go back to school and like I want to train NFL athletes and I want to like train guys for the combine or whatnot. And it's slowly evolved over time in terms of, I've trained everybody from 5-year-old kids to 95-year-old people as well, all walks of life, athletes. And I started to kind of like phase into training well, at our gym now, we currently do a lot of adult fitness classes. So like a lot of young professionals from the ages of 20 to 40. And I currently started to realize that like that crowd of people is honestly the most consistent and the most reliable. You know, training athletes, seasons come and go. Some seasons these days, basketball is a year-round sport, so you might get to train a kid for one day a week for a month, and then you might never see him again for 6 or 7 months.
Wow.
So in terms of being able to create connections sometimes with those kids, or to be able to like see results that you helped them get, as opposed to like, okay, he just grew 6 inches in the last year. You know, I didn't really do a whole lot with that.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen him in 6 months. But the adult fitness clients are the ones that like that. For one, they kind of need to check a box. You know, they need to sweat every day, or they need to sweat 4 or 5 days a week. And they come in and it's like they want to release some tension and they want to get out of their heads from work, and they honestly want to just crush themselves and get crushed. Mm-hmm. And like, personally, again, like me, loving the work and loving working out, and you know, how much pain can I put myself through some days, and like these are the results I'm going to get because of it. Like, kind of fell in love honestly with that crowd of people. Mm-hmm. So like today, I absolutely love working with adult clients and adult fitness classes and strength training, and kind of educating them, empowering them that it's like, you don't just need to sweat and check a box, but like, here's a better way to do it in terms of strength movements and conditioning. And you're going to see better results with it, as opposed to just checking that box of sweating. So let's do both. So like, that's where I am today. And I love it. I still train athletes, but I love the adult fitness industry.
Yeah, it really is amazing. I mean, it makes you really aware that, you can come in and check that box and just sweat and, you know, get a good workout in, which is, of course, a big goal. But you have, you know, an athlete or you know, an adult client has actual fitness goals or goals outside of the gym, but they will achieve those because of the work that they're putting inside the walls of your space. And so that's it's a really cool realization to have, that no matter how old you get, you're still setting goals. They might look a little bit different than when you played basketball in high school, but they are coming from that same place of passion and drive to just be better.
Right, 100%. And I remember when I first started working at Velocity Sports Performance, like the adult class, like coaching that was the last thing that I wanted to do. So it's just like crazy how that's changed in terms of like, that's what I would prefer these days. And part of it is, I think, like, I still have clients from those first classes, you know, 6 or 7, 8 years ago. Part of it, I think, is that just the time that I've been able to have with them, and also kind of change their mindset on what training really is and what it looks like, and you know, what it can do for them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, absolutely. I really do love that. And so, Mitch, are you still working at Velocity Sports and Performance? Does that and TQN training kind of work in tandem?
Yeah. So Velocity, I think it was literally only about a year after I had gotten to Velocity Sports. The original owner of it was like, you know, I can retire. I want to spend more time with my family. So he actually sold the building, but me and the guy who was the performance director, that was like best friends with a kid from my same hometown, we actually just moved down the street to another building with basically the same setup. And that's where I was for a long time. Still am. I'm only partially there. I'm actually, so I still do a lot of training there. I work there 2 days a week, coach 2 or 3 classes of the adult fitness. I actually work at another gym as well, doing the same thing, coaching, I would say, CrossFit style like classes. Mm-hmm. We're not a CrossFit affiliate, so we can't call it CrossFit for one. And we stick to more of the basic functional movements. We don't really do a whole lot of like skill work like CrossFit deals with, or a ton of Olympic lifting. But I'm also full-time. I'm the head of the men's department at Lululemon downtown, Charleston as well. So I'm kind of like wearing a lot of different hats right now.
Wow. So what does being the head of the men's department entail?
It definitely looks a lot different in 2020, which a lot of things definitely do. So kind of before this, I was like our community outreach lead, and men's department lead. So the big thing that I got to do, which was really awesome, which kind of fell into like me loving coaching and all that, is spread awareness about the men's business, because there's still a ton of people that don't really know, that Lululemon even sells men's clothes. But like, I would be able to create these like once a month men's events where we'd go somewhere, we would work out, and then like I'd be able to gift the guys, like each guy a free pair of shorts or something like that. And then we'd all go to, some restaurant downtown and have a beer or have some drinks or have some food. So again, like building that community through like sweaty endeavors and working out and getting to know each other. So like that was what I did before COVID. And now that coronavirus has come around, we've basically, from a corporate standpoint, had to limit our like community events and stuff like that. So honestly, what my role is now has changed a lot, and I'm still actually exploring it in terms of what does our community outreach program look like if we physically can't, get together with people and do that.
Yeah, I can't imagine trying to navigate that. I mean, in the position that you're in, but it is interesting how it seems to have come full circle. I mean, you're kind of using that marketing background, and it seems like it, right? I guess in that business marketing aspect, but then too married with your love of fitness and working with people and building that community.
Yeah, 100%. So it's definitely come like, I haven't really used my marketing degree for anything until, being a part of Lululemon, and it's definitely helped out. And it's, like you said, it's kind of woven the best of both worlds in terms of using my marketing degree and taking my knowledge of fitness and coaching and, connecting with humans and being able to put all that together, which is really cool.
Yeah, it really is. So, Mitch, looking forward, I know, of course, you can't possibly know what actually is on the horizon with Lulu and with everything that you're doing with them in the community outreach department. But looking forward, what is your ultimate goal, or what goals do you have for TQN training, along with the community outreach aspect of Lululemon, just all the things that you're doing aligning? What are some goals? Where do you see them going?
Yeah, so for TQN training, for sure. So this past year, COVID was almost kind of a blessing in disguise to some extent, because, I was not necessarily out of a job for Lulu, but we didn't go to work for 2 months, and then doing, minimal gym stuff in terms of doing some, like being able to do some Zoom classes. But basically I had lots of free time, which before I didn't, working 3 different jobs. And my entire goal had been to deliver online programming and 30-day training programs and ebooks in terms of like, this is my style of training. Because the TQN brand, in terms of all the workouts that I would post, I would have so many people reach out to me that are like, man, I love your training style. Like, can you write me a workout? Can you do this? Or like, what was that full workout that you did today? And it's like, I put out so much free content that I was like, man, I could probably start like charging people to do this.
Yeah.
So during that downtime of coronavirus, I was able to build my website. I was able to put 4 different 30-day ebooks together, which is like, one of them is basically how I train 95% of the time, which again, I say is similar to CrossFit without a lot of the skill work. And then I also have a dumbbell only program that literally requires like a set or 2 of dumbbells. I have a kettlebell program that I built. I went to Guatemala for 3 weeks this past year, like literally right before the whole country kind of shut down. And all I had was a 53-pound kettlebell, and I worked out every single day. So I wrote an entire program with that. And then I also had a body weight workout program. So I was able to put those out. And now I also have a monthly subscription platform where basically people can do those same workouts that I do every single day. And I think my biggest goal is to deliver my style of training to as many people as possible without basically being confined to like the Charleston area. And you have to be in Charleston to train with me or to train like me. And so you can kind of access my workouts all over the world.
Yeah. Man, I love that. One, that you really took the time. Of course, it's objectively challenging this past year in a lot of ways for a lot of different people, but the idea that you, for lack of a better, less cliche phrase, you made lemonade out of lemons, because you,
yeah.
I mean, you literally went all in. You're like, okay, now this is my time to do my books and to make my training programs and to write things just using kettlebells and body weight movements. And then two, it seems that COVID in a lot of ways has catalyzed technology. I mean, it was already on the really growing, but in just different ways, in the way that you could, like you said, reach people now outside of Charleston. You could do that before, but having the opportunity with that concentrated amount of time to really develop that platform to make that now possible.
Yeah, the time was the whole thing for sure. Working the 3 jobs, I was still trying to, put my website together and design the ebooks. And I just would have 3 hours on a Sunday to maybe work on it. And it was just it was never going to happen unless I got, weeks at a time where I could just sit down and, go to town on it.
Yeah. And you did. I mean, and that's another thing too, is you could say, okay, oh man, I would do this if I had the time. Well, you had the time, and so you did it. You had to actually say you're going to do what you're going to do when you do have the time to actually dedicate to it.
Right, 100%. And my goal, when that kind of happened, which was great. So many people were, kind of coming out on, online and stuff. And it's now is a great time to it's a good time for us to pause. And, we're always going. And, maybe this is a blessing in disguise to pause. And I was I'm not going to press the pause button. And when this is over, I'm going to come out ahead of everybody else because I'm going to have everything set up and I'm going to have everything rolling. And this is the time, I'm not going to press that pause button. I can't.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. I couldn't agree more. I love that. Well, Mitch, I mean, you have accomplished such a great deal, especially in the last couple of months, but of course, over the last couple of years with training and really helping people and, aspiring and getting after your own goals and looking forward, knowing, of course, you're going to achieve everything that you set your mind to. But I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, man, that's tough. Honestly, I think honestly just my hard work. I think everybody that comes in contact with me, I want them to go on to the next person. And man, that dude works hard. He never stops. And, maybe that's a bad thing in terms of never stopping, whether I'm in the gym or at work or coaching a client or trying to, write workouts to get up on my online program. But it's it's what I truly love to do. And I think it was instilled in me at a young age, just pure hard work. And I think we can all, if you ask people who their mentors are and things that they aspire to be or what they like about those people, I think that, hard work always pops up to people. And so I just I want to be known as one of those people that everybody that comes in contact with me is man, that guy led by example and, works hard. And I aspire to work just as hard as he does.
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest, check out the show notes at keepmovingforward.us. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective Studio. Always remember, you can beat the odds and go the distance if only you keep moving forward.